The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. This quote is, of course, from Thoreau in his book Walden, and what it struck me like a hammer. And as I always do with stuff that I encountered that really struck me, I wrote an essay with the quote as a title, and I would like to share my reflection with you today. I wrote the essay to answer the question: why does this quote sound as if it was written today for us, for the modern people, and what does it mean? Quite this. What does it mean? Lead a life of quiet desperation. Why is this desperation quiet? This is the what I would like to cover today. And to do that, I had to go, of course, beyond the book. And this is one of the pleasure of reflecting on stuff, because you can make links with other things that you encounter in your life. And I found this linked with a movie, That Boy Society, another book, The Pathless Path, by Paul Millard. I found it linked to Kierkegaard, to Zizek, and so I would like to share all this with you. It might be like a quite long video, longer than usual, but see it as a, if you want, as a kind of lecture in what Thoreau means, at least in my opinion. So let's begin. Thoreau wrote this. To understand this quote, we have to first go back to the book, of course, and like see the context in which he said this quote. He wrote this quote in the context of the man who works and see himself as a worker first and foremost. So um, he wrote, what is called resignation is confirmed desperation. When we consider what is the chief end of man and what are the true necessity and means of life, it appears as if man had deliberately chosen the common mode of living because they prefer it to any other. Yet they honestly think there is no choice left. This, I think, is so key. So um, we live in quite desperation because I think there are two reasons, and he explained one of them here. The first one is that we have made a choiceless choice one day to follow the default path, if you will, of the default mode of living, as Thoreau said. And second, that we think this choice is the right one and the only one available. And um, third, and this would make this desperation quiet, is that we feel as if we must enjoy this choice, because most of the time following the default path leads to default success and what other people deem successful, and so we feel like we can't complain about that. But I will explain everything in a second. So my question is it choosing something a real choice when no other options are deemed available? And so um, I think that the desperation comes from the desperation part of the quote comes from this choices choice. So we passively choose what we are conditioned to choose from others, from um, yeah, from others, what other taught us about the world. So for example, classic: go to school, get good grades, get out; go to university, get good grades, get out; go find a good stable job, minimize the risk, get a good career, buy a house, get a partner, build a family, keep working until you're 65, get a dog and some more other kids, and this is what all life is all about, right? And don't get me wrong, some people thrive in this path, and I have friends that really thrive in this, they're really happy with this kind of path of life, and this is great. The the point is that I saw online so many people complaining about the default path, like feeling a sense of malaise in this mode of living, because fundamentally they haven't chosen it. You just follow what your parents have done before you, what your friends is doing, and so you go with the flow, and you pretend that this is your way. So following Thoreau argument about the worker, I think is really, really, really similar, and almost is almost scary how similar it is to the situation of the men today. So I question myself about the quiet desperation part. So for example, imagine someone who despairs, okay? For example, a slave back in the days, a slave despairs, but loudly, right? He despairs loudly because he knows that he's painfully aware that another path, another way of living is possible. It's just that from he's kept from reaching it unfairly, and so he despairs loudly. But the modern slave, if you pass me the term, that Thoreau is describing, is a slave who uh, is at the same time his own jailer. And as Goethe said, there is nothing worse than a slave who keeps himself going and think that he is free. So and this is exactly what it is. He thinks the modern uh, work slave, he thinks that he has chosen, you know um, and his misery. He is miserable, but he is gaining something out of it, of course, which usually is status. You know, your family, is proud of you because of your career, and you can afford a lot of things and comfort. In affording things, which actually drains you from life. But this is another topic. And so he despairs quietly because he feels like he cannot complain about the situation. He has no words to describe his misery. And in a way, out like is like if thinking a way out of his misery is worse than the misery itself. And so he's kind of trapped, because once you did all this work, all these years of studying and work and career and so on and so forth, you build a house, so you are in debt now, because or whatever. I'm generalizing here, but follow me. um, you build a house and everything. The even just the thought of getting out of this situation, it would be like unconceivable, super scary. And is you people rather stay where they are and suffer miserably. um so the mass of men despairs because they don't like what they think to have chosen, but not strongly enough to take in the risk of changing it. You know, it's like the frog who is, you know, swimming in the pot in a nice and warm water, and she stays there because it's just not too uncomfortable, you know, to jump out. So he stays there because it's like a middle way, and he doesn't realize that the pot is actually under fire and she's dying, you know, because it's gonna boil, and it's gonna be too late. And this is exactly it. And here I would like to quote weirdly my mom, which once told me, people would rather feel bad than risking feeling good. And that's it. I mean, people would rather feel bad than risking feeling good. So thanks, mom, for this quote. Is really great. I think is exactly the point that Thoreau is trying to make. Is this trap middle way in which you are miserable, but not enough to jump out of the pot, and at the same time, the the thought of jump just the thought of jumping out of the pot is so scary, so uncertain, so unknown, that you'd rather stay where you are. And so paradoxically, the modern worker doesn't want to lose the comfort he has built with his misery, the pain with his misery, that he cannot really enjoy because he has to keep working to maintain it. So it's like a vicious cycle. And Thoreau wrote, most men, even in this comparatively free country, through mere ignorance and mistake, are so occupied with the factious cares and superfluously coarse labors of life that its fine fruits cannot be plucked by them. Their fingers from excessive toil are too clumsy and tremble too much for that. Actually, the laboring man has not leisure for a true integrity day by day. He cannot afford to sustain the manliest relationships to men. His labor will be depreciated in the market. He has no he has no time but to be a machine. How can he remember well his ignorance, which his growth required, who has so often to use his knowledge? uh what it sounds really profound, but what he really, what is trying to say here? um is is it trying to say to quit his job and magically, you know, start to enjoying life? Because as you might know, Thoreau lived in Walden, the Walden Pond, for 2 years, and he built his own house with the work of his hands, and he kept living really, really frugally and just eat what he was able to, you know, from his vegetable garden to produce. And so is he trying to say to us like, oh, do the same? um i i I don't know, I don't think so. I don't think this is what he's trying to say. For sure, a common theme throughout all his works is to question, to question reality. So it's not, this is not a self-help book, and this video is not trying to be a self-help 10 easy steps to get out of the rat race. Okay, first we have to understand what the rat race means, and what it means to me might mean a different thing for you. So this is not the point. um, what he's trying, in my opinion, to say is that we have to detach a little bit ourselves from our the label we have on our forehead as a worker, and realizing that we never actually choose to be full-time workers. We just default to the the thing that everybody else does. But this was actually not the case throughout all history, so it's like a modern anomaly that we take for granted. And B, that choiceless choice was not necessarily the best to begin with. There are other options. And I don't think, like, it's not a matter of you know courage, returning to the quote before, of quitting the rat race or whatever you want to call it, or take a sabbatical or whatever, but it's more like be an active participant of your life. Ask yourself questions, get your own conclusions, and then run experiments. I live my life as a constant experiment, little experiments, and the beauty of that is that there is no real failure in experiments. I don't see myself as whatever I'm doing right. I don't see myself as a YouTuber. This is just an experiment. It's just something that I like to do now, but I don't want to attach my self-worth to this. um and the same can be said for a worker. Like, don't see yourself as an engineer or chef or whatever that is. you know Try to, if you're not happy with that is, of course, try to experiment outside of it, asking yourself questions. um so the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation because they are free, mm, and swimming in abundance more than any other human in history, probably, surely, but only namely so, like only namely free. Um, and here is another modern trap, which is that not only they believe that they've chosen the default path, not only they believe that in in any case the default path was the best option to begin with, but third, you we feel we must enjoy, that we must be happy. This is the greatest trap of all. It's like the should. We should ourselves in believing that the path we are in, the path our fathers were in, our mothers were in, our friends are in, is the right one, is the only possible one, and we must enjoy it because others seems to be enjoying it. This is where social media come into play, right? In obvious way. And this is linked to what the philosopher Zizek called the late stage capitalist subject, with is a fancy way to say the modern man who lives in a capitalistic society like us. Um, Someone who has everything, plenty of food, abundance, entertaining whenever you want, uh, technologies, and that that clean your dishes, or clean the floor with a robot, clean the robots that clean your floor and stuff like that. um, and you, like, this subject feels like he's trapped because is precisely because he's working to pay the robot cleaner, right? That he has to keep working. So a way out is really difficult to grasp. Secondly, is the fact itself that he has a robot cleaner cleaning his floor, making his life easier, okay? That he feels like, how can I possibly complain about this? How can I possibly, you know, uh, despair loudly? And so what we do is despairing quietly. This is, I think, what Thoreau meant, and in a more modern key, if you want. So there is this voice whispering in us, like, how ungrateful, my grandparents were in the Second World War. Like, how ungrateful am I with all this technology, all this comfort, to think that my life should be something more, you know um what an ungrateful piece of crap. You better shut up and enjoy. You better enjoy. You better posting on social media that you are enjoying it, right? And so he he's stuck in a life he didn't choose, and yet he doesn't enjoy, while he believed he had chosen it, and he's supposed to be enjoying it. And so he can do anything else that despairing quietly. And I think that the um, is what Zizek called true desperation, real desperation, is the tristia mortifera, which is a fancy way to say you pretend. The modern man is pretending he's not despairing, um, and that makes for a real desperation. And so um, in the book, the pathless path, Paul Miller reported this testimony of this girl who um, quit her job and took a sabbatical and tried to get out of this quiet desperation. And she said that voices, like question, were start to circling in his brain painfully. And those questions were, what my family will think. Will my parents consider me a failure or irresponsible? Will they love me less? Will they think I'm selfish? So there is also a component of interpersonal relationship that, as Alfred Adler said, all problems are interpersonal relationship problems, um, that trap the modern man into a trap of his own making. And somehow for the modern man, not confronting these painful questions, not going against what your friends and family believe, sounds and sounds better than get out of the system or finding a way out. And so sounds better to despair quietly, because you can just hide it. You can hide it inside and let it rot inside you. And while you post on social media that you're crushing it in life, right? It's like if our profile, a social media profile, like a scarecrow, that you just put there in order to keep away bad thoughts, or discomfort, the discomfort of being the exception, you know and while other people can look at your scarecrow and think like, oh, he takes really good care of his vegetable garden, which is your private life, and he must be really, crowd free, and good on him. But the reality is just that the scarecrow is a fake mapped version of yourself that you exhibit in public to let the misery get, you know rotting inside you. And here comes Kierkegaard, because I found this quote from Kierkegaard, which is precisely, he talks precisely about this. He says, The greatest hazard of all, losing the self, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. No other loss can occur so quietly. Any other loss, an arm, a leg, $5, a wife, etc., is sure to be noticed. So, when I read this quote for the first time, it made me think about the movie Dead Poet Society, which you're probably familiar with. Great, amazing movie in which, funny enough, that quote, uh, "The master man leads quite a life of lives of quiet desperation," is cited in the movie, and Thoreau is often cited in the movie for a good reason, actually. The point the movie was making, and the scene that popped into my mind when I read this losing sense of potential of Kierkegaard. In Because Kierkegaard once wrote that he doesn't wish for wealth or power, but for the passionate sense of potential, and that losing it, it will be like losing oneself. And they the the scene of the movie that popped into my mind with this is when toward the end of the movie, Neil Perry finally confronts his father about, he doesn't want, about the fact that he doesn't want to be a doctor, he wants to be an actor. And so there is this argument in which, his father said, um, I decided that I will not let you ruin your life and waste this opportunity you have, and that I could only dream of. And I decided to enroll you in a military school, and so that then you can go to Harvard and then become a doctor. And of course, at that point, Neil jaw dropped, and he said, "Ma, Dad, this is gonna be like another 10 years. It's like a lifetime." And he dismissed him like, "Oh, don't be so dramatic. You make it sound like a prison term, right?" And he said, "You have opportunity I could always dream of. Your grandfather could always dream of this. I will not let you waste it." And at that point, for the first time, a crucial point in the movie, for the first time, Neil stood up and yells back at his father that nobody is caring for what he feels, what he wants. And his voice is immediately overwhelmed by the louder voice of the father telling him, "Okay, go on. What is that you feel?" You know, in a very dismissing way. And in that moment, Neil froze, and and he says, "Is that more of the acting business? Because you can forget that. What is it? Tell me." And Neil look at his mother. He his mother look at the floor, so he has no help in there. He looked back at his father, and with a sad, nervous smile, he answered, "Nothing, nothing." And I won't spoil you the end of the movie, but this is what I think Kierkegaard meant with losing oneself to self. This is what I think Thoreau meant when he said a life of quiet desperation, a life you cannot even start to think about rebelling from it for different reasons. And I um, I think that this translates to what Paul Miller wrote in the book, The Pathless Path, which is all about changing the path of life and your work, and what does it mean, work, and all that. And it is most men it suffer from this malaise because a lot of people around them, like Neil's father in the movie, it considers this malaise as a even a privilege, you know. um, and so they stick with this because they don't want to confront like the father figure in this case, and their suffering becomes familiar. And this is what Paul Miller wrote in the book. Many people dislike some part of their jobs, but they stay in their jobs because their suffering is familiar. To change will be to trade the known for the unknown, and change brings discomfort in hard to predict forms. So people avoid change and develop coping strategies. They learn to sidestep the manipulative manager, or like me, change jobs every couple of years, plan a vacation, stay busy, and get drunk during the weekends. He says, play this game long enough without becoming too burned down, and you might end up getting promoted. Yeah, yeah. Stick with your sense of malaise, lose yourself, yeah, and your sense of potential quietly for long enough. Keep yourself busy, repress the discomfort, you know, and you might you might end it up getting promoted. I think is a wonderful way to come a full circle with this reflection. And so you cannot see here, but I wrote a few more pages of this reflection in which I kind of sort of trying to explain what I think could be a solution to this problem, but it sounded so too personal and too self-helpy that I think I don't want to give you my experiences so that then you can, you know, skipping the hard work of figuring out how to get out of this situation. But I wanted to return to Thoreau. I give you one single advice to conclude, which is re- rebel. Uh, rebel. Rebel about this situation, and the only way you can do it, rebel to the default path, rebel to what other people think or might think about you, rebel. And the only way to do that is questioning. This is what Thoreau did throughout all his life, in all of his work, and is what made them special. And is what I'm trying to do here in this video, actually, in a meta level. Is like questioning, questioning the reality around us, questioning everything that we keep for granted, question the career, question why they said you need to own a house, question what does it mean to have a family, question everything, everything that our current ideology deems successful, deems enjoyable, deems the best of the best. Question that. And if you, and it is through questions that you can start to rebel, because questions are always the greatest threat, the greatest threat to the power in charge, and the system we live in, whatever system actually. And so yeah, thank you so much for being with me in this lecture. um, I had really a blast and writing this, and I hope you could you know, gifted me with your opinion about this. It will mean the world to me if you can comment or send me an email with your idea of this. If you want to further up this discussion, um, it will mean the world, and the ultimate reason why I'm sharing this with you is to have a constructive, beautiful, enriching conversation in the comment section or through email and so on. So thank you so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate it, and see you at the next video reflection.